everyone. Oh, Tracy, we're all here.
You guys really do this as a team, right? So Gina might make the call, but Amber might take the call back to schedule, or Aaron or Lori might get a text message. I mean, it really is all of you working together, and it's just such a great example of the amazing teamwork we have to save a life.
What does the rest of the organization not know about the contact center? I think it's probably they just don't quite realize how hard it is to get somebody on the phone and how many phone calls that we really have to make in order to, first of all, speak with somebody, and then the skill required to actually make an appointment from that person that you're talking to.
If one of you was going to guess, how many phone calls do you place before you actually speak to a person?
If I get 228 phone calls in a day, I may speak to only 10 to 15 donors.
Yeah, isn't that insane? How many calls do you guys try and make in an hour?
35.
35. I mean, that's a crazy number, right? You can make a couple hundred calls and not speak to anyone. So let's say that you can make 200 calls and only speak to one person. That means you're making a lot of phone calls, right? 500, 6,000 calls, but it takes 200 calls to speak to a person. Sometimes you guys are only speaking to 30 or 40 people a day. But then what happens? Do they schedule online? Do they call back? How do you get appointments?
Yep, the online schedule, they schedule themselves, right? Text back in, maybe. We could give them a call, leave a message, and they
Or
might
they'll call
prefer the
back in.
text. Yeah, or call back in. So a variety of I guess, methods that they could get scheduled.
Some of you have been here. I'm thinking, Melissa, of you. You have been here 26 years. Do you get to the point where you recognize and know some donors when you call them, or how does that work?
Yes, I do. A lot of my donors recognize who I am when I call, even especially reminder calls to pick up the phone. They always say, "Hi, Melissa, I'll be there." And no Aspen products, 48 hours. I'll remember to eat and drink and bring my picture ID. They're just down to the routines, especially the platelet donors every 2 weeks. Yes.
I get calls with people rescheduling their platelets, and they always tell me to tell Melissa that they're sorry they had to reschedule.
I have a gentleman that I haven't talked to him in a while, but his name is Wayne, and they call him Santa Claus, and he always joke around with me, and he even sent a picture in. I think a lot of you will remember that. He mailed a picture into the contact center of him and his family, and he does look like Santa Claus. And he has called in a few times and hasn't gotten me, and I've gotten some messages from the team like, "Hey, Wayne hasn't heard from you. He said hi." It's cool that they remember you and they care about us like we care about them.
The altruism of it, you're saving lives, and you're talking to good people and making contact with those good people. Everybody I talk to, I can find a way to really connect with them and have a good giggle with some, have a very serious conversation with others. Just depends on where they're at and what they're doing. If they're grumpy, I can even connect into that and say, "Yeah, well, it's early morning. I get that. Have another cup of coffee. And how about a donation?" And they're like, "Yeah, I will."
One of the things most of you don't know, but Tracy and Melissa and I will remember this, is that when Tracy and I started at the blood center, and this might have stopped, I'm guessing for sure Melissa maybe did this. We used to have every person in the contact center, your name was Dolores. So when you called, it's Dolores from the blood center. Well, clearly we didn't have, 20 Doloreses, but for some reason the rule was Everybody at the blood center who made a phone call, their name was Dolores.
Well, I'm just glad that Doug and Kevin don't have to say hi. This is Dolores.
Yes.
Right.
What's the hardest thing as a new hire? We have several of you that have only been here for a few months.
For me, I think it was actually something kind of different. I think it was kind of just like after you're making the phone calls and I think part of it clicked with me that there's so many kids that go to donate during high school and then they just don't come back.
It can also be tricky to deflect or diffuse a situation with an angry donor or a frustrated donor, given some of the changes that have taken place, guidelines and such. It's a challenge, but it's really interesting and rewarding to be able to maybe flip their perspective or give them a good reason to come in.
One of the things I don't think people at the blood center realize is that there's a group of you that spends a significant amount of your time only responding to text messages. So who is that group?
That is myself
Yeah.
and Dana and Aaron.
Okay.
So we split the day in thirds and work together and get it done. I think it's interesting how many when a media drive goes out or a media appeal asking for a certain thing, because we will go from 150 texts in a day to, I think I looked and it's October 18th. We had 455 that day, 200 the next, 250 the next, and it hits like a bomb.
We get a lot of text messages, and one of the things you may not know if you're newer is when the pandemic first started, Tracy, we sent out a text message asking for blood donors because we were desperate. And how many text messages did we get?
Oh, how many was that, Heidi? It was like
It was over
1,000.
Over 1,000.
Yeah.
Easily. I mean, it took probably a solid week.
Yep.
To work through them.
Texting has become a pretty big part of it. Bill, you do a much different job than most of the people that are on this call. Can you kind of share what you do?
Well, I think a lot of what I deal with is centered around our database of donors. And my job is to help make sure that the contact center is communicating effectively with donors. Do the call list have the right donors on them? If we start a new donor center like we did with Ankeny or West Des Moines, how can we create special call lists to attract people to those new centers? And then when management is trying to make decisions, it's my job to sort of mine the data to find out, for instance, if we're going to open a particular donor center during the week, what time slots are most popular?
What's the biggest surprise that you had as a relatively new supervisor coming into LifeServe as in the contact center?
The biggest surprise that I had, I think it's probably how connected to the importance of the mission everyone is. I mean, it really blew me away for the first probably 3 months I was here about how our team is so motivated by the work that we do and the difference we're making. I like to say that we're the bridge between our donors and the patients we're helping. And our team, these guys, they know it and they live it and they breathe it. And it's so wonderful. And it makes every day so fulfilling to come to work and to be their supervisor.